The Lost City of Z is directed and written by James Gray and it stars Charlie Hunnam, Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Sienna Miller, among others. And this chronicles the true life of Colonel Percy Fawcett. This man went on to the Amazons to search for new tribes to map out the regions, and then he found archaeological evidence of a lost city that he named Zed, but we call it Z. And from then on he went on several other expeditions throughout the years trying to find this lost ancient civilizations and trying to prove to the world that the Americas, or the Europeans, the British more precisely, were not the most advanced or even the first civilization to exist. I have a weird background story with this film. Not that I actually had heard of Percy Fawcett before, but I am glad I do now. I did not like the one trailer I saw for this film. Then I heard that this movie was spectacular. I find myself in the midst of these opinions, my own from the trailers and the ones I have heard so far from critics. As always, let's start with the good. This movie looks immaculate. The photography here is tremendously good. The color grading in this film is amazing. This movie is imbued with green and gold tones throughout, and this type of color and color grading to your film gives so much for storytelling. As you start out the movie, it gives this kind of sophistication because of the British society that they find themselves in, and of course because they are people of high standards in society, but also as soon as they get to the jungle, you get this gritty and eerie and uneasy, savage, wild vibe throughout the movie that completely adapts to each section of the film. There's also one section of the film where they are on the First World War, and it also adapts beautifully to that. I also found the sound design completely enthralling and immediately captured me into the film and captivated me throughout, as well as the score. The score for this movie is so subtle but so good. It captures you and immerses you so much into the storytelling. I really like Charlie Hunnam in this film. This man has not given great performances, let's say, and I wouldn't exactly call this one a great one, but I really like what he does with this character, and I really like the character of Percy Fawcett himself. This is a very passionate, driven man with one purpose in mind, and throughout the film you don't doubt that for a second. And to me that is very relatable, and I like this character because of that. He is constantly with one goal on his mind, and he does everything he can and everything he can't to try and achieve this goal. So much that he goes on several expeditions spanning so many years, so much that this film becomes a chronicle, and a well-made chronicle, although it finds some lows as well, just like many films that try to span a lot of years. The whole cast throughout is good. I really like Robert Pattinson in this movie. He does something with his voice because I don't exactly remember his voice being like this. And no, I did not just watch him in the Twilight films. Ian McDiarmid is also in this movie, and I was just waiting for him to say something that Palpatine would say, like a good, or speaking of evil, or something like that. He doesn't, but he's still really good in this film. Tom Holland has a small role that gradually gains importance as far as his screen time is concerned, and I really like him. He doesn't get an opportunity to shine, but he's believable in the role. I talked about some of the lows that this movie unfortunately falls back onto because it tries to spend so many years, and in so many movies that try to do this, they fall on the lows. There are the pacing. It seems like the pacing is inconsistent at some points, and there's also some characters that are cannon fodder. Now, I don't mean cannon fodder as to spoil you that they are going to die. I mean cannon fodder in a way that they occupy too much screen time, and then they don't feel as important as to the screen time they occupied. There are characters that clearly Percy Fawcett related to. There are clearly characters that Percy Fawcett had conversations or adventures with, but they occupy too much screen time. And then there are sections of the film that take too long between expeditions, because the expeditions of Percy Fawcett, his adventures, his discoveries, are the most interesting parts of this film. There's a scene, as I said, in World War I that is important to the character, but it just takes a little too long. You know what the character is there to do, you know the purpose of that scene, and it captures the times that this movie is set on really well, but again, it damages the pacing a little too much. Also, I'm not going to spoil it, but the very last shot of the film felt weird. It is storytelling in a very different way that James Gray told the story in the rest of the film. I know the purpose of why he ended the movie that way, I know why it is there, I know he wanted to give a little punch to the ending of the film to leave you thinking, but the storytelling, the method itself doesn't fit with the rest of the film. I like this film in a very weird way. You know those History Channel movies, there are documentaries about discoverers and explorers in the past and they discovered something huge or they did something very important to society to evolve and progress? This is one of those movies, but it leaves out all the boring parts about people talking about how they translated a script or a document that somebody had wrote, or they discovered something that was left behind by one of these explorers. And this movie has real characters, it has a real narrative, it has characters that you can relate to on some way, it has characters that if you have read The Journeys of Percy Fawcett, because this was adapted from a book, you can enjoy this film because again, there are real characters, there are real stakes, there is a real conflict, there is a real world history happening in here. And I like this movie in that way because it gives me a narrative, it gives me characters and the conflict and themes and allegories and metaphors for important stuff that happened. Beautifully shot, it sounds incredible, the actors are all great, and there are characters that you can relate to. I also think that the movie runs for a little too long, and again, that is a damage to the pacing, and because of that, I will say The Lost City of Z is definitely a martini. It is a good time, anytime. What did you think of The Lost City of Z, my beautiful geekies? Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Have you ever heard of Percy Fawcett? Do you know any other adventures of him that were left out in this? Let me know all that in the comments below. And as always, go check the description and go join the beautiful Geeky Community Facebook group. The link is in there. As always, I have the Return of Geek Classic this week and I can't wait to see you there. And so until then, you stay beautiful and you stay geeky. And if you haven't done so yet, click the subscribe button and the bell so we can be geeky united.